Hello, welcome to the Free Cheese Podcast Spoilercast. That's right, a Spoilercast. I am Matt Sellner. I am with Mark Augustiniak.
Hello.
And Joe Dix.
Hello.
I brought you in last because you never get to come in last. You're always first. See?
I appreciate that. I want to come in last.
If you,
Move in after completion.
Yeah, perfect. If you have stumbled onto this podcast, you may not have seen the title, but the title is Spoilercast Resident Evil Village. And that's right, as that time of year, not October, but another Resident Evil has come out. We have all played it, which is kind of rare that we all play a game, so we decided to come together and talk about spoilers. With that being said, the title says Spoilercast, but let me reiterate, this is going to be heavy spoilers about Resident Evil Village. We're going to get into all the nooks and crannies. We're going to even talk a little bit about the other games because we're going to have to. So yeah, if you have not played Resident Evil Village, or you don't care about playing it but want to hear us talk about it, there is your warning. That being said, how are you guys today on this Friday night? Or Friday.
Yeah.
Kayfabe.
Friday or Fright Day?
Oof.
Get it.
Oof.
Get it. I'm good, man. I don't know about you guys, but I started the countdown to Halloween. It's begun.
You didn't
All right.
start.
It technically
like,
began
like
November 1st.
Right, 12:01.
Yeah. But I finally hit that point where I'm like, yeah, what are we doing? You know? So I think this is a fitting, I was already kind of smelling it in the air, and I think this is a fitting kickoff to get me moving right along to Halloween Town.
All of that.
How are you guys doing?
Say Mark.
Oh, I mean, wholeheartedly agree with Joe, but I am also doing good. Excited about this. Hype for Resident Evil. I don't think it's ever died down, if I think about it. But, it's just another typical day for me.
Has it not died down for you even after playing through the game 4 times?
It's not like, as if it's like your first experience, but I think just in general, just overall with the franchise, it's always love talking about it. It'll never really get tiresome of it. Just because how different they all are.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, this is like the one franchise, even though I've never played or haven't played all the games, this is still like, it's right up there with Metal Gear Solid in terms of its weird, wacky storytelling that somehow kind of makes sense, but shouldn't in every way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I there's something about this franchise that I really love and appreciate the story. Which is why I actually really liked this game a lot. I think the Village did a really good job of storytelling and cinematics. And with that being said, I always like to start off the spoiler cast with our thoughts. Now, we've talked about it on the podcast at great length, of course, but with spoilers now being allowed, how do we feel about the game, especially probably the ending of it, since we didn't really get to talk about that much?
I think taking a little too long. Overall, this is definitely, like I said before, it's definitely like in like my top, my top faves out of the series, and it stands out so different from the rest. Like 7 was standing out already, but like I think this one just took it further. You know, it added a lot more like supernaturalness to it, which I think the series kind of needed. I don't know if it's gonna stay for long. I hope it does. But yeah, even after, especially with the ending, it just, my mind is just exploding with ideas of what could be and what should be and all that.
Joe?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like I have a different perspective as someone whose history with these games are, I played 4 on the Wii, and then I played Umbrella Chronicles on the Wii, and then I didn't touch another one until the remake hit modern consoles and I played a little bit of it and fell off of it and didn't touch anything again until the 2 remake. So my timeline for Resident Evil, outside of like a demo of Revelations or something like that, or not Revelations, Mercenaries on 3DS, is like I played 4, then 2, then 7, then 3, then this. That might be right. And I guess I played 1, a good chunk of 1 in between my time with 4 and my time with the 2 remake. But so I think by default this is in my top 5, right? But I think also like the thing for me, and I guess we'll talk about this way later on when we talk about like what's next, but I've just spent the last, I would say, 2 years really getting to know some of the characters from the earlier games. You know, and like with the 3 remake coming out last year and this big emphasis on Jill being, you know, a super important character, my questions at the end of 8 are like, where's Jill? Granted, I know a little bit from, you know, 5 and whatnot, but like, that's not even just Jill, but like, where's Leon? Where's Claire? As we look at, you know, the Ethan story and now Chris is brought back into the fold. Like that's where I'm kind of at, is like, I'm wondering those things, but the game itself, I think overall, like, just my general thoughts about the game is I like it in the context of like my history with Resident Evil. I still like the third-person games a lot better, but that didn't detract from this. I just didn't feel as strong of a connection to Ethan as I do with the other characters, and I don't know if maybe pulling the camera back behind him and letting me see him would have let me feel like that's Ethan. Or what, but there's that piece of it. But I do think that like this game as a whole, it was so reminiscent of 4 in the like just color scheme and the obviously like it's in Europe, it's not in Spain this time, but like having it be over there kind of grounded it in a way that made it or rooted it in the same kind of sense as 4. And yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot, but I feel like I like it less the further I get from it. You know what I mean? I'm more like, when I got done, I was like, yo, this is like the second best one. And now I'm like, it's moving down a little bit. I got some other favorites, but what do you think, Matt? Where did it fall for you, or what's your overall thoughts?
I mean, I enjoy this game a lot. I think the fact that this gets compared to 4 is probably the main reason why I like this game so much. I mean, I'm kind of biased because I only play half the games in this franchise, honestly. But like, this would be top 2. Or this is probably top 2. And even at the end of the day, like once I'm like I'm away from it a little bit more, I think it's going to stay there. And it's going to be one of those days where I wake up and you ask me, what game do you like better, 4 or 8? And I'm probably going to flip-flop on a day just because I'm in a different mood. But no, I like this game a lot. I did not play 7, but I have watched a full playthrough of 7. I like the emphasis on combat while staying spooky enough. I think it maintained a good spooky while being an action-driven game, which 4 kind of did for the most part, I think, up until like the end of that game. But no, I overall really like this game. I think its replayability with the end game stuff is really good, and it's really good and makes me want to come back to it. And God, the ending of this game with the lore dump, which kind of feels forced, but we'll get there, and the whole Ethan revelation, I did not see that one coming, honestly, although you kind of had something, you kind of knew something was up, but I did not know it was going to be that good. So yeah, with that being said, there are probably, let's say, about 5 big sections, and then all interwoven with village sections in between. We're just going to quickly run through kind of like the chronological order the game sends you through and just give us what were we thinking during our first playthrough, kind of at the end of these little sections. So, yeah, we're going to get into it. First part, obviously, is the intro with Mia and the baby, Rose, and then that quickly goes sour, and you see Chris Redfield shoot the hell out of Mia, and especially in the head right in front of you a couple times. You get carried away, go into a van, wake up, dudes are dead. You stumble into a village, and then shit starts going south real fast. Werewolves running around. Dude gets literally dragged it through a ceiling right in front of you. Werewolf tries to drag you through ceiling too, but then takes you through to the basement. Yeah, shit just keeps happening. It leads to a big old werewolf ambush attack, and then, yeah, I don't know, you go into this house, more werewolves attack you, you get out, girl you save, father ends up killing her, a lot of bad shit happens, and then you start making your way to the castle. From there you meet Heisenberg, who is what turns out to be Heisenberg for the first time. I don't think you get his name quite yet. He takes you away after stabbing you, and then you get to meet all the bad guys, in which I think is one of the coolest scenes in all of the game. And with that point, what were we thinking? Kind of during that whole intro thing, you're getting the lay of the land of the village. You're seeing what the enemy what your main enemy is going to look like for the whole game. You get a taste of that. You get a taste of the combat because you do have a pistol at this point. I think you get the shotgun too before going to the castle, if I remember correctly. So you kind of get a gist of what it's going to feel like after Chris has trained Ethan going into this game. So what were you all thinking kind of during that scene, the escape scene, kind of everything leading right before stepping foot into that castle?
So at that point, I'm like looking at the cover of this game, looking at all the banner art they have for this game, above the logo treatment where we see half of Chris's face and half of a werewolf's face. So when the van's tipped over in the snow, I'm like, Chris is a werewolf. Chris turned under the full moon or whatever the rules of these werewolves are and destroyed everybody from the inside. Something's happening. And I genuinely, going into this game and even up to that point, thought that we were going to have a Chris final battle scene where he is a werewolf, and that was, I didn't know how it was going to be rooted in Resident Evil lore or whatever, but like that would be the thing, is like, what, LOL werewolves. Seeing the four of them in the castle together, that was where I was immediately like, oh, and Mark had said this to me also, and I kind of thought this is exactly where it was going. I was like, oh, well, I mean, who better to make a Mega Man game than Capcom? But I thought we were going to kind of get to choose, where we're going, and we would be maybe not getting powers per se, because I didn't think we'd be getting that like a Mega Man game, but like getting different items that would carry you. Huh?
Defeat Moro and become a fish? Is that what?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? But that, and then the idea that like knowing there was a mercenaries mode in this game, thinking that like that would be a way to extend replayability where like, oh, I'm going to do a Heisenberg first run. You know what I mean? Like I could see those, that's where I was at going into that, which obviously played out a bit differently. But yeah, Mark, what did you think?
So the werewolf part, I thought it was kind of, I mean, it's a little video gamey, right? Like when you are traveling and it's like pitch black out, and then by the time you leave the cabin, it's all of a sudden like daylight. I was like, okay, I don't know what time of night we were at for this to be like, boom, instant sun, but okay, I'll just go with it. It's fine. And that whole thing, I mean, of course, at first, like, you don't know that you just have to survive like 4 minutes until a scripted event happens.
Oh yeah, I definitely died thinking it's something else.
Yeah, like I would run around for a bit, but then I found like my quote unquote Jesus room, where it's the house with the ladder. You go down to like that basement part, and then right before you see the hole that you can crawl out of, I stay in that corner because nobody ever comes into that hole. They only come down the ladder and go around the wall to try to attack you. So I just hang out right there for the longest time until I clear the area of all the lichens so I can pick up all that money. And then you still get thrown into the river anyway, and, you know, scene happens. And then, like, going to the church is when you see, like, the photos of the four lords. And, like, that was like, all right, this is where I'm starting to feel like, that's where I was getting the Mega Man vibes from, because it felt like that screen that's like, hey, which one you want to, whatever. I was a teeny bit bummed by marketing to semi-spoil me with Beneviento, because I didn't know there was going to be a doll character until that Japanese like puppet commercial they had. And so like I had to like stop it immediately because I was like, I don't know if that was just like a little just enemy that you just deal with in a game, or if it was a boss or what. But then like seeing a photo just like made me feel like I forgot all that, and that was pretty. That looked real. That didn't look like a CG photo to me. How all those black and white photos were, at least for hers, that one like looked, it was legit. And then seeing it, and she's all crazy looking, and just seeing everybody at once right there was not what I expected from a Resident Evil game for sure. It felt like very I don't want to say cartoony, but it definitely had like overly animated feel. But I guess they wanted you to get a vibe of everybody at once before knowing what you're getting into. But that the whole thing, from the moment when you're fighting the werewolves up until you are running while shackled, like, it doesn't let up. And it's just like the werewolf part in the beginning, I think I guess they just want you just to keep running and feel like a sense of panic. But I think it's not good for an introduction to a game, because you kind of don't know what to do, and a lot of people just end up dying there because they think they have to fight everything, because in Resident Evil, that's usually what you do. But, like, to run in the void, especially for that long, I think it's a little brutal for newcomers. But by the end of it, when you're just running through, and like, I even messed up when I got the shackles, before you get the spikes, like that little nook in the corner that you hide into. I don't know if I even saw it last minute, but I tried picking up items from the crates first.
Yeah, no, I did the exact same thing. I tried to make a run for it, and I was like, well, what are those shiny things?
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, man. Like, the setup of that game initially, like, walking through the woods in the pitch black, it was really, really scary, and I
Good
thought
vibes.
that, I talked about this in the podcast, but they did, like, a really good, I'd never expected, like, spatial audio to come through a TV the way that did, and I thought it worked so well. And then the rest of the game was kind of bright. Like, the sun was out, you were like hanging out with lights on, and it was really not that at all. So I think in a couple of ways, I think the opening to that game did do a disservice to what it would later be.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they wanted you just to be able to see all the enemies that you're dealing with, and then maybe that was their best way to deal with it, which is fine. But
and I think it's a good way for them to say, like, they're like really ripping the bag off your head of, this is not a tradition. This is not what you expect of Resident Evil, right? Like, it's not zombies.
Yeah.
Like, look, they're not zombies,
right? And they had to show up that the Lycans are a pack enemy. Like, they don't really act individually; they work together, and you really had to know that first and foremost, I guess, from right off the top. So yeah, I mean, I guess the attention was to be overwhelming. So I guess good job in that department. But yeah, and then, like, I don't know. I think it was really cool. It was a really cool way to introduce everybody. Well, I mean, the main bosses and the Lycans, at least, because there's still more enemy variety than that.
Yeah, just quickly for me, before actually sitting down and playing it that Friday, when the reviews started coming out earlier in the week, and there was the Resident Evil 4 comparison, so I was like, all right, yeah. I mean, I was already probably going to get it, but I was like, all right, yeah, all right, cool, Resident Evil 4. I love that game. I'm going to buy this one. And then the opening happened. And, like, that opening, probably more scary than what Resident Evil 4's is, but very similar. Cut out the opening part. Like, you go into the village, you're wandering, have no idea what's going on. You get attacked by one or two werewolves. And then all of a sudden, it's a pack attack, and you're trying to survive until literally the bell tolls and everyone leaves, and you're like, oh, weird. And once I died that first time, not kind of knowing what to do, but it reminded me back to Resident Evil 4. Like, I died a couple times in the very beginning of that game because I didn't know what the hell that game wanted me to do. Literally, I kind of complete the area, the bell rings. I'm like, dude, this is Resident Evil 4. And it kind of just put me into that mindset of, like, all right, this is going to be like an action game, but it's going to be spooky enough where I think it's going to keep its mainstream audience, like, it's going to keep mainstream audiences happy with it not being super scary, but it's going to also keep Resident Evil fans happy enough because it's going to be scary enough. And we'll get to a special part soon on how they did that. But no, like, that happened. And then when we get to the scene with all four of them, it's really interesting. It's just the Baker family dinner again, but with these supernatural beings all fighting and bickering like they are a family, because they kind of are, with the way Mother Miranda is. Like it's just a really weird comparison. Like I don't think you think like, oh, this is just the Baker family dinner all over again. Like it is, but I don't think you think that right away until you actually sit down and think like, oh wow, this is like kind of the same thing. You're seeing the family dynamic, and then you have to escape, and then you end up killing all of them at some point. So I think that was a really interesting setup to kind of bring elements from two really adored games and bring them and mash them together to start off the game, leading you into the castle. Anything else before we start heading into the castle?
I wanted to point out the children's book and how that basically like foreshadowed the entire game. Probably not necessary if you're going to introduce the Four Lords immediately, but I guess they wanted to tie them to the book to be like, hey, these are these dudes, just to let you know, like, this is what the book is based on. But because I kind of know how some movies work with storytelling, they like to foreshadow the twist in the beginning, and then it's like they telegraph it in a way, but just subtle enough to where like you don't know exactly until you come to the twist. So like that gave me a lot of like expectancy, but man, they could really make their own like movie with that type of animation, like not even related to anything in Capcom. Like they could just be their own animation company, like DreamWorks or something. I thought that was really cool.
It was a weird start to that game. Like I didn't see that coming, but I liked it a lot. And like you said about foreshadowing, not just that with the storytelling, but the whole Mia interaction foreshadows everything. And like when you go back in hindsight, you're like, oh man, it was so obvious. Everything's right there, but that's good foreshadowing.
And my favorite little joke was the grocery list on the fridge. I don't know if anybody saw that.
I forgot.
Like there was a list of food to get for Rose, and at the very bottom it says in like all caps like no mushrooms. I was like, ha. Mold joke. Get it?
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. I thought they were finally gonna have your Jill sandwich joke there, but I guess not.
Yeah,
she's not in this game. That's why. Next one. So you escape the four dudes. Well, not dudes, the Four Lords, and you stumble your way into the castle, and then you get a nice introduction eventually. Well, one, you meet the Duke right for the first time, right outside the castle. Well, we can talk about him later. We don't have to talk about him right now, because he has a more pivotal part towards the end. We can talk about him there, but we get into the castle, and then you meet Lady Dimitrescu one more time, but this time she has all her daughters around. So you kind of get that reveal. You get hung up. You in her bedroom, her master quarters or whatever. You break free, and you start perusing around the castle. It's pretty much the whole castle area is one giant puzzle with regarding these faces, and the entire castle is you running from one of the daughters or Lady Dimitrescu later on. So you got the whole stalking Mr. X nemesis thing in this whole castle area pretty much the entire time. The castle area is nice and big. I kind of actually like that area a lot. We'll get more into that in a second. But yeah, you're going through finding these masks. Of course, the daughters all turn into like little mini boss fights. You find out their weakness is the air and the cold. So you use that against them in all the boss battles.
Because they're made out of bugs.
Yeah, I mean...
they're not real people.
Yeah,
well...
it's bugs pretending to be people.
I mean...
yeah.
It's what's happening right outside of Maryland right now. The cicadas is what I'm talking about, people. Anyway. So you go through, you solve that puzzle. You lose a hand at one point, then you reattach it. I laughed, like belly laughed out loud when he just put his hand back on. Yeah. I thought it was really stupid. I had a feel in the back of my head that like I was going to lead to something, but I was just laughing too hard to think about it. And then
I'm glad they paid that off in the end with an explanation. But at that moment, I was like, come on,
Yeah.
dude, how many times are we gonna do this?
Like, I thought it was just like a video game gimmick thing, because in 7, if you interact with Jack enough when he's chasing you, like, he takes a shovel and chops off your leg, and then he hands you a first aid to put it back on so he can chase you more. And I was like, I never triggered that event, but I saw it, and I was like, I thought it was just like a nod to that.
No, I did trigger that, and when it happened in 7, I was like, this is dumb, but okay, whatever. And then when it happened here, I was like, what is the deal with this, man? Like, this is, I was like kind of agitated, but
Ethan's like a crash test dummy.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So, you go through the castle, you do everything there, you kill the 3 daughters, but the main lady is still at large. So you get the 4 masks, you open up this weird door, of course, because it's Resident Evil. You go through, and then it turns into the Lady Dimitris boss fight, but it's not your typical what you've seen in all the adverts for this game. She turns into pretty much like a flying dragon, almost, minus the fire, more like acid. And yeah, so that's a giant boss battle. It takes place kind of like on the roof of the castle, kind of like in 2 different stages. She absorbs a lot of bullets, you take her down, and then you're through the castle part. And to my one of my gripes of this game, you can't go back into the castle after that part. You are officially locked out of it. And so yeah, with us being locked out of the castle, what were your thoughts of being inside the castle?
Right. I was going to let you go because I went first last time.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. I'm pointing up because you're above me, but I don't know if that...
Okay, yeah, that doesn't... Nope, not for me. You guys are T-shaped, so you're like...
Well,
over there.
All right. Sorry.
No, okay, well, for the... Yeah, for the castle, that was really cool. I think that felt the most true to Resident Evil to me in terms of vibes. You know, you have this is like your mansion kind of equivalent with like little pseudo puzzles in between, like that bloodbath puzzle with the statues. Like that was pretty cool to have a riddle and then go off of that. Yeah, just like, and then like when you get the key to go outside to the courtyard, like then there's more rooms to explore. I'm like, all right, cool.
And then you see there's another room that requires a different key that you can't get into. Like that is like Resident Evil mansion, our police department at its finest. Oh, there's a door that's locked. It requires the heart key. All right, let me wait to get the heart key.
It's like 7 had Jack, 2 had Mr. X, 3 had Nemesis. Village has 4 of them, like chasing you throughout the castle. There's 3 daughters and Lady D. It was cool to make the connections with the demo here, especially the one for PS5, the Maiden demo.
Mm-hmm, yes, yeah.
Because what I didn't know until I like looked at the concept art was that Lady D enslaves all the females, like just like all the women, and they're the ghouls underground in the brown cloth, like, you know, in that blood cellar area. And one of the maidens that you played as was one of them, because you get that necklace in the demo, and then when you kill one of them in the cellar, it drops a necklace. And I was like, oh no, she got transformed. And then whatever dudes get captured, they get turned into the wine. They just harvest it immediately. So I thought that was a really nice touch and theme to go along with that whole castle. Yeah, like it was a bummer to not be able to go back. And I like the semi-lore based around that dagger you find in that coffin to stab her with. It was like, this was supposed to be like the ultimate like monster slaying weapon. It was almost like a Belmont's whip like situation. It was like covering all kinds of poison, and then you lose it, and it's like,
yeah, I know, immediately.
That would have been so cool to keep. Man, I thought that would have been like the knife upgrade or something. But
although to be fair, at this point he already reattached his hand, so I thought maybe he was going to do like a force kind of like pull right back up. Like at this point, like who gives a fuck, right?
Remove the hand entirely. Just put the dagger right in there, Puppet Master style. Just
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Say like Lady D's final form was, I like it, but it was hard to see. Like, even though we were out in daylight, I mean, you're smaller than this creature, and like unless you're looking at the 3D model in like the menu or whatever as like bonus content, you can really appreciate all of its like fine details. Because she's constantly like moving around and like flying far away and going in like in that square formation, you don't like you see the mouth more than anything. So it was kind of hard to appreciate it during the fight, but yeah, I like that this was first. I like that the marketing was heavy into this because you did not know what to expect after this. Like, it kind of gave the impression that this was be like a Spencer Mansion situation where it was like maybe 1/3 of the game, maybe even half, and it would be like a much more complex and bigger castle to explore because it's big, but it's not like massive, you know.
Yeah,
like,
it's like almost the equivalent of like the entire first floor of the Spencer Mansion, like maybe even smaller than that.
But it was fun enough to navigate around without truly getting lost.
Yeah, but then like I think one of the things, just real quick, Joe, before I let you go, like one of my favorite things, like with the castle layout though, it allowed you to kind of start to learn the castle, so that way when you had that moment of like you're about to open a door and here she comes going through, dipping under, and like you turn around and run, you kind of know like a good way to circle back around without having to like go head on with her. And I think, you know, it's good level design for that castle, despite it, you know, it's big, but it's small in the scheme of Resident Evil big facility mansion type areas.
Yeah, I was dumb and thought she was made of bugs, so I was like, oh, she won't come outside, it's too cold out. And she opened the door, so I'm like, well, I'm an idiot. And I just kept running. But yeah.
No, I think you bring up a good point about the lore, though, Mark. Like, that was something in the castle and throughout the game that I kept appreciating, is like the little subtle bits that they would feed you when you'd read a little bit of something or you'd read those journal entries, like learning a little bit more about the history of the characters and the world that they're in, made it all the more easy to like accept it. Because again, like I started to hit a point where it's like, we are completely on the other side of the world from where Raccoon City is. How is this a Resident Evil game, right? Like, in that way, like, it is a Resident Evil game in so many ways, but, like, where's the tie? And I was kind of always looking for the tie. And those little subtleties were what were kind of feeding me that along the way. I think the castle itself was probably my favorite locale overall. Yeah. And I think... because it did feel so much like you said, like the Spencer Mansion, like the police station, and really in so many ways, like this game beat for beat is the same as 7, right? Like you start off inside of a place and you feel like this is where I'm gonna be for the whole time I'm in this game, and then you quickly find out like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna go out here. I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna go down this path and find this weird thing.
Oh, there's a ship over there.
Yeah, right. Like there's all that stuff you start to sort of discover. Yeah, I was like kind of disappointed that they had shown so much and leaned into this so much in the marketing. But then knowing that there were 3 others and that this was the first one, then it was just exciting because it was like, oh, what's next? You know, like, what are they all going to be this cool? And yeah, it made me excited to see, okay, who's next? You know, MK11 style or MK10 style, whatever the heck it was.
And shout out to the piano puzzle. Kind of a nod to the first one too. Oh yeah.
I thought the puzzles were really good in there. The bell one though, I'm an idiot and I like didn't find all the bells in the same room the first time, so I went all the way back through the castle, which ended up I found a secret room I hadn't found before, so that was cool. But I went back and was like, oh wait, there's a tiny bell up there. Oh, there's a tinier bell up there.
Oh, there's one outside of the damn place.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like, why do you have to go up here in this ledge? Oh, it's outside. Yeah.
Yeah. But the castle was the first introduction we had to the puzzle, the maze, the ball maze puzzles.
Right, yeah.
And those were like my favorite thing of the thing. Like I was more excited to hunt out whatever ball I was going to find and find the thing to put it in after each main boss than I was to actually fight the bosses. Because I thought it was such a cool, weird detail that this like puzzle maker, craftsman dude like
Like that
took
could
the
be its
remains of
own
his
like spinoff. It's just those.
Yeah,
Well,
that
I
was
mean,
creepy and weird.
Another callback to 4, right? Like the merchant in 4 just had these shooting galleries just in the middle of the fucking castle. Like, okay,
yeah.
sure, we'll just do some shooting gallery stuff in the middle of trying to find Ashley. Let me shoot you a couple of targets and win some money. So yeah, any I didn't mean to cut you off there. Did you, anything else, Joe? Before we
I
move
was
on?
trying to wrap that one up quickly so we can talk about the good one.
Man, and a good one. Good. It's I'll say that in another. That's one way of saying it. Sure. Yeah, it's House Benevietto. Yeah. So, all right, we'll start with first. You go back to the village after the castle, and this is kind of the first time you realize, okay, I'm going to kind of keep coming back here. And then you kind of have the opportunity to kind of Metroidvania some things. You kind of are forced into the village for a little bit. There's one jump scare that got me because of the 2-second delay on the passcode. I knew it was coming, but then that 2-second delay, I was like, oh, never mind. And then boom, it happened. So that kind of sucks. But you go through the village, you get introduced to like the first armored werewolf in that section, and then you kind of go to the Duke, and he kind of fills you in on the lore at this point. He's like, all right, yeah, you're probably the 4 parts of your baby are across the 4 different lores. If you found that one with Lady Bigfoot, so you might want to go visit the other ones. I'm sure they all have it because they were going to come together for a ceremony. Cool, Mr. Duke. Which way to go? And he's like, oh, well, go find his key. That's when you go back to the village, you find the key, and then he's like, go that way. And then that way is probably one of the worst places in this game, period. And it doesn't start off good either, because you just walk into just a valley of puppets and dolls and things just hanging in trees and in graves and all this stuff. And then there's Ghost Mia, although you don't...
It's subtle, though. The valley's very subtle, like the way it teases it forward, and you're like, what am I walking... I was very intrigued walking into that place.
Yeah, and then like the way they navigate like the fog and like some tree branches to what ended up being like a bigger area. They closed it off, but without it being like too obvious that they closed it off either. I didn't realize it was closed off until the second time I made that trek to the valley, because I was like, wasn't this more open on my way out? And I realized what they did. So I thought it was really clever, just little hiding its kind of gaps, I guess. Where the openness would be in that little part. But then you get to the house, you walk in, it's completely quiet. It's not good. First of all, it starts off back because you take the elevator ride down and the elevator just goes pitch black. Nothing happens, but it just turns pitch black for a few seconds. I'm like, great. So then you walk in the
I
house.
thought they were going to do the thing where the lights flicker and then
Something's
a
there.
girl standing there and then lights flicker out.
I mean,
again.
there was writing on the wall just after the lights turned back on.
Correct.
But that's
To the-
yeah.
yeah,
It should have
to the
been
right.
like it would have been cool to see someone.
Yeah.
No,
I was
I
waiting
was
on
happy
Samara.
it turned out like it was. But then when you got, so you go into the house and you take the second elevator, and I thought for sure that was the one, and it still didn't happen. I was like, thank God. And then you walk into the room, the lights go off, and then you're introduced to a mannequin of Mia. Just the format's different. There's a typewriter all of a sudden, and yeah, essentially this little area becomes a like bigger 5-part puzzle or something like that. With some like every time you kind of solve a little piece of it, the doll would come on over the air of the radio and kind of just like give you like little weird like little horror things about Mia and what that baby could be, kind of foreshadowing a little bit. And you essentially solve the puzzle. You get some lore along the way, and then you make a nice movie that that is not the movie you made at all. It's just a guide of this well, which you did not make with the film strips. So you end up going to the well, you get in the thing, and then when you come back, you're going back down this hallway, and this horrifying fucking creature is just there. And it's screaming like a baby, and then it just starts chasing you, and you run for your life, and yeah, that becomes a boss fight in a way, because when you first enter this area, when that room goes dark and the mannequin appears, you lose all your weapons. Ethan even says, "Oh, what happened to my weapons?" in a very video game kind of way. So this pseudo boss fight, I guess you could say, turns into this runaway sequence, which I died a couple times because I did not figure out the under the bed thing for a couple tries. I think Mark, I even texted you. I was like, I can't fucking figure out this baby. So yeah, you complete it, you go back up, turns into another boss fight, a for real boss fight, but it's more of a hide and go seek boss fight, but hide and seek with a timer, because all these dolls around the house are going to come murder you if you don't find the doll in time. So yeah, it becomes a little hide and go seek game. You viciously stab the doll every time, and then before you know it, Miss Beneviento is dead, and you are kind of sort of moving on, but without its fair share of horrors and dark hallways and red lights and very PT, narrow, and long hallways and scares along the way. So yeah, thoughts on probably the scariest section of this game?
I thought this was their homage to PT. I think that, I don't know, but to me, from the outside, it always seemed like the kitchen demo and the introduction we got to 7 was a direct response to PT. And I don't think that we would have, and I could be totally wrong, they could have been planning this for years and it's just coincidence. But from the outside, it seems that 7 was a response to the excitement around PT. And this was a way to say thanks and maybe like realize some of the things from PT that never got to come to be. I think thematically, it plays into a lot of things. I think thematically, all of these bosses, when you look at it as a whole, they tie into some part of like Ethan's psyche or a trial that Ethan has to come through. Like they all kind of represent a fear or something for Ethan himself. And this one, like the idea that he had been through everything he had been through and that your baby could become a monster, or the idea that, right, like seeing Mia trapped as a doll, like, is she just a puppet of, like, there's all these things you can kind of like start to like read into a little bit. But in terms of like playing through that section, it was so cool. Like it was just super cool. And yeah, that giant baby, like immediately the first time I walked in the hallway and everything's dark, I'm like, something's coming. Did not expect it to be that. But he looked straight up like the baby in the sink from PT, except if you had like injected him with a bunch of, blow up juice and honey, I blew up the baby kids. You know what I mean? Like,
let's keep it
that's
thematic,
what I got from
some
it.
G virus.
Yeah. If you took the sink baby and gave him the G virus, it blew up into that. And, yeah, I thought that was a really, really fun section, that it was nice to be in the dark again. Like the castle stopped being scary once you kind of realize what was happening. It was like, okay, I need where's the next daughter? I got to take that out. And then eventually, because I think even Lady Dimitrescu was not super scary. She was just Mr. X all over again. And when she popped up, it was like, all right, well, I'm going to turn around and run the other way until she gets caught somewhere on the map and I can keep doing what I'm doing. Where this was genuinely like, what's going to be around the next corner? I don't know what's happening. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot. I really liked
the small little hallway, just because you expect the jump scare, then just that little picture just fell off the wall, and it was enough to make you jump. You're like, oh shit! Like, god damn it, you got me! Like, I don't know how many times I yelled at the TV, "You got me!" during that whole section.
Yeah, like the whole approach to this, like you were highlighting before, just like the subtleness of like seeing some gravestones, maybe a doll here or there, and then you reach that whole big circle pit of like gravestones like piled on one another and all those plants, which you come to find out that's how you inhaled that, so she's able to make you hallucinate and see shit because of that, which is like I didn't really pay close attention to until you're fighting the doll, because you start to see there's like a weird chromatic weird filter going on. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, got it. Context. Awesome. But yeah, as soon as my items disappeared, I paused the game and I texted two of my friends, or I'm not sure if I texted either of you about it too, but I was like, I need to file a police report because my shit got stolen. Like I was like, it's going to be one of these. Okay. And I really loved it because it felt like it was just like a big escape room, like kind of puzzle. Like instead of having to navigate to so many rooms, this was only like contained in like maybe 2 or 3, but most of it was in one. And so, cause like you needed the locker that was on the door, but the combination was on the ring, but the ring was bloody. So you had to wash it off, and you had to open like almost each limb of the Mia doll to like figure out what to do next. And Yeah, and then like you go back down the hallway, and you know the door just opens on its own to go to the music box, and you're like, okay. So you do that. I saw a lot of people get stuck with that music box puzzle, but I thought it was kind of obvious right from the start. You just had to line up the scratches. A lot of people didn't get that right away, which is like, I guess it's 50-50.
I saw the scratches, but when I lined them up how I thought they should be lined up, it didn't work right away. I had to try a couple times. But yeah,
that's what happened.
It stuck out to me.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I thought I had it. Like, I understood it, and I thought I had it. I was like, what the?
Yeah.
Why? Okay. Yeah.
It was just it was interesting to see. And then I noticed that there was lockers in that room, and then I didn't realize till after the fact that when you're hiding, you can hide under that bed from the baby, but you can also hide in lockers. But I think the bed was better because you're closer to the door, and you don't have to worry about an animation of like opening the door that it's in front of. So I think the bed was a better advantage anyway. But yeah, like going from that puzzle and then the film puzzle, and you get to watch the ring. If this was like 12-year-old me would be having a heart attack, because like I was deathly afraid of dolls as a kid, and like it lingered for a little longer than it probably should have. But yeah, it's just like, and just seeing them all just standing at you, staring at you, and even when trying to run from when the baby shit happened, that like, well, first you see that the mannequin doll's gone, and then you just see an umbilical cord, and then you have to follow that umbilical cord. And, like, I think I barely saw the baby's face before turning around. But the whole time, like, yeah, like, most people are, like, screaming, like, what the fuck is that or something. I think my initial reaction was just me just, like, I think my jaw was dropped the whole time. But adrenaline kicked in and knew to just immediately, like, quick turnaround and dart. So the whole time my face is just, like, I'm just like, where do I go? What do I do? And it's like, all right, got the elevator. Oh, no, you need a fucking fuse? All right, shit. Then that was set up really well. And yeah, I don't know one person who didn't make the comparison to PT, like with that. It was just everything about that was so, like, it felt out of place for Resident Evil, but out of place so much that now I want more of that in Resident Evil. So now I want it to be commonplace, like, for something like that. Like
commonplace, like the unexpected,
like a little bit of unexpected, but a little more psychological too with their horror. Because Resident Evil isn't really known for the psychological aspect of it. It's more just like viruses and like lab related results and what have you.
That's the thing too. Is like I feel like I had a bit of like an internal struggle where there were parts of this where I was like, this does not feel like Resident Evil. And then there's parts of me where I went back and remembered like what actually happens in 1 and how ridiculous some of the stuff is. I was like, nah, this has been Resident Evil for 30 years, 25 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like we're good.
Especially since like, they always want to incorporate stuff like this. I think for a while just didn't have like a good time to do it. But
so I don't think I think it's nothing's off the table at this point, right? Like go for it.
Yeah.
Right. Why not?
Embrace it.
Unless maybe the thing you want to do is make a giant fish man you have to fight. Maybe that is something they could skip next time.
Yeah.
Then like, oh, go ahead, Mark.
I would say the doll fight's just kind of like whatever. Like
it was over very quickly.
Like I think it was a little too easy, but I guess it had to be since you don't have your weapons. So like I don't know.
Yeah, but I didn't even get like when you were describing, Matt, that the dolls will come up and attack you. Like that never happened to me. I didn't know what you were talking about.
It happened once for me, but
I don't remember any of that. So because it just was like I felt like I found it, and then it was like, oh, she's dead. Achievement. What? Okay, all right.
But shout out to the sound design during that. Like for each stab,
yeah.
Visually, it gets a little more intense, and the sound and the music get more intense. Where you start hearing like kids chanting and shit. It's just like the uneasiness just did not let up after that baby. I guess even during the mannequin stuff when you're just trying to figure stuff out, it's just been nothing but escalation that whole time until you had the baby. I mean the doll, baby doll, whatever. And then I really don't know where to fit this in at, but did anybody do, as you're leaving it, that optional treasure with the gravestone?
I never found the piece to come back to it, but I know there is an
So-
I didn't need it. I knew about it, but I never came back.
Yeah, so like not the thing itself, but getting it, I thought was a little unfair because there's a time frame for it. In that village graveyard outside of the castle, there's a little gated little like hut, like a little thing.
Yeah.
Between Beneviento and Moreau, that is your only time to be able to go back into that graveyard area. Ghouls will pop up. One will pop up in that little hut and open that gate for you, and then you can grab the slab. Other than that, it's locked at all times. That's your only chance to get it. And I was
I
like,
ran
man.
through the village before, I guess I could say it, before like the factory area, just as a one more sweep, and I got there. I was like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, okay,
But yeah,
well,
that's
that makes sense.
Fucking hard ass fight right there too. But it's another optional boss fight. But yeah, just even that house is located like outside of the waterfall. It's so secluded with the bridges and shit. Like it was like total complete isolation on so many levels. I can fully understand why like this stood out the most to the majority of the players. Like it's
it's like
terrifying.
that good horror movie that scares the shit out of you so bad that you like it after you're far and away from it. Like, I think that's just the best comparison for it. Because honestly, I think that's my favorite area too, even though that's like probably the one that I'm supposed to hate the most. So yeah,
strongest point.
Yeah, so it's just one of those. It's a good horror movie segment in Resident Evil that's just scary as shit.
Also, like because of the theme of the baby, like I didn't want to really gloss it over, but like it was weird that the game kind of glossed it over. Where like your daughter is in 4 flasks, like it's a severed baby, and it's just like, but they're just like, yeah, but she could be healed and put back together. Like I think they kept trying to make note of that, but it's like still.
It was still like
you took my daughter and severed her,
cut her into pieces and put her in jars and split her up against 4 people. Who are these people? That was very weird.
Yeah. I forgave that a little bit more, especially because it was foreshadowing what Ethan is. I think a little
right.
bit.
Just the concept of it, though. I just didn't expect them to go that way.
But once again, remember at this point, I expected him to force pull that knife back. He reattached the hand, so at some point, he was like, "Oh, this is a Resident Evil video game. Like, who cares?"
Yeah,
right?
anything goes.
Yeah. So we go from one of the best areas, maybe the best area in the game, to probably the second worst or worst one. I don't know. So once again, common theme, you return back to the village. I really like this part of the village because you're introduced to that big-ass werewolf for the first time that kind of just comes out of nowhere and stabs you and becomes like this like hunter-prey, predator-prey little thing. But with 2 grenade launcher bullets, I took care of that situation real quick.
Yeah. Dude, that design is so gnarly.
So yeah, I like that little return to the village there, and then of course you get the next part of the wing key, and then you go and visit Moreau towards his little swamp area, and yeah, there's really not much to talk about here. You see him, he's an interesting character, but the area and his set pieces and all that are not interesting. And so you meet him, you grab the thing from him, but he like entraps you. Which was a difference. Like, you got the thing right away, but it was more you escaping. And then you kind of go through. You get a boat. There's a cave. I missed something completely here, according to you all. I found out earlier today. I'll let you guys get into that because I didn't see it. And then, but there is. I think the one pivotal piece here is the first time you see Chris Redfield since the Mia thing, and he. I actually kind of forget what he says, but he's kind of like dodging, like, get out of here. Something along those lines, like, get out of here, you don't belong here, you need, stay out of my way, kind of thing. And he still seems like he's a badass, and like he still seems kind of sort of shady at this point. So then that happens, Moreau turns into the fish, there's a set piece in the water, that's just a giant weird puzzle. Then there's a boss fight that's not that interesting nor fun. And you're kind of out of that area. I'm just going to leave it at that. Any thoughts, any gaps that I missed, anything you want to fill in? But, definitely for me, I'll just say it, let's get my piece out of the way. It was my weakest area for me personally, I think. And that boss fight's not fun. Although I do think Moreau can be a very interesting character if he was placed in a better situation.
Yeah, I thought they just kind of like, I don't. It sucked because like you said, that's the first time you see Chris, and you're like, oh, okay, here we go, story development time, and then it's like, nah, not at all. Go do some things. I thought there were some neat things like in the like underground tunnels, like in that little like train yard or whatever minecart section. But yeah, then once that boss fight was done, I was like, I'm good, dude. I'm ready to roll. And then onward I did.
Yeah.
Mark?
I liked the little light up square puzzle for the generator to drain the water. I thought that, I mean, it wasn't like anything like super hard, but I liked that it like flipped everyone because it was flipped. So like you had to look at it on the side and like, oh, they meant this way. I thought that was.
Am I the only one that took a picture of that before leaving that room because you thought it was something out in the wild somewhere, and then realized that
really?
It was just the thing right in? Yeah, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to remember this, and let me take a picture so I don't have to run all the way back and figure out what it is.
I mean, that's good thinking, but I did not do that.
I didn't do that either.
I forgot about it, honestly. Like I saw it and then left.
Similar to that note.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. Getting the crank was fine, I guess. I mean, like I feel like I knew too much of how the game worked at that point to be like, all right, I know I'm safe for most of this. It's just about timing when to like cross those little bridges before you get eaten. I think I might have messed up like once or twice just because I didn't turn quick enough or something.
Yeah, I think that's what my biggest problem with that was. I felt too safe the entire time.
And it totally slowed you down intentionally when you're crossing stuff. I'm like, why? Like, I'm faster than this every other time, but here I'm just slugging it. Yeah, it's definitely the weakest part for me out of the whole game. Nothing about it was necessarily creepy, but this is also something where I don't know how they would have done it in the game, but because of the concept art, and now thinking back on it, each area so far has been pretty well representative of each person's like character and like personality. Like Moreau's mutation is so bad that like he's basically mush. Like he can't really like comprehend things that well. Like he just wants to be, you know, mama's favorite. That's all he really cares about. Like he just wants like love and affection. And in the concept art they were showing, like when he's watching TV, he's watching like old black and white like romance movies and stuff because that's just all he yearns for. Like that's really it. So it's like, of course, like somebody as simple as him is going to have a simple level. So I mean, that's one way to look at it.
But there's stuff in there that like you can kind of like you can see parts of that, like what you're describing, like coming through, but it's never like fully realized. And I think for me, like 4 is definitely of the ones I've played like my least favorite in the series, and this was the part that felt the most like 4 to me, and I was like,
yeah, and like the boss design was cool.
The character
though.
Seems cool. The what?
The boss design when you're fighting him was actually pretty cool. I like that like a human was coming out of the mouth.
He's cool. Yes, yeah.
But casual run with a fully maxed out Magnum, I timed it. That boss fight was done in like almost less than 5 seconds.
That's crazy.
It's just bop, 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 bop. All right. Move on.
That's so funny.
Oh, man. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for that.
Yeah, I got nothing else either. Joe, you're good? We're ready to move on?
Yeah.
Great. So, you finish that part, you wander back to the village, but I believe forgive me, I kind of forget. Does Heisenberg call you? Oh, he goes through the TV. That's what it is. He goes through the TV that Moreau was watching, and he's like, "All right, come see me." And he wandered back to the village, and he's all of a sudden built signs, pointing big old billboards saying which way to go, and it eventually leads you pretty much to like the Wolf's Den. I don't know, like another name. I don't know if there was an official name for that area, but
it was the Lycan Stronghold. I think was the name.
Lycan Stronghold, aka a Wolf's Den. So
I like Wolf's Den.
You kind of go through it, and this was the part that felt like Resident Evil 4, like high intense action, except you can actually move in this game with swarms of enemies coming your way. This whole area is pretty much a fight against wave after wave of Lycan, just in these giant different arenas. Until the point where you face the big boss man, the big wolf, the one with the hammer that you saw very early on in the initial village run. I forget, Urias or something like that is the name of that boss.
Urias.
Which is, look, I think it's better than the Moreau fight, to be honest, but it's just a generic small room, run away from his hammer and shoot him. The thing was, with this boss battle, this was the first time, like, this area is the first time, I think, in the entire game where I felt ammo challenged. And that ammo challenge kind of carried over into that boss fight. So I think that was the part that made it the most challenging. And, I mean, like, once again, you defeat him, you get the fourth piece, and you're kind of like, all right, cool, the game's going to do something now. We're done with this 4-piece puzzle. And then, that's just kind of the area, and you go back to the village. I don't know if I missed anything. Like I said, I kind of forgot a lot of this area, to be completely honest with you. But it was just a generic action area for me. Thoughts?
Like that was just like a gauntlet, and it was like, man, all right, so it all comes down to this. Like, it's kind of like the beginning, but now you have a fighting edge. And it's in the back of your mind, it's like, all right, trying to use as least ammo as possible, make every shot count, kind of thing. So it was nice to have, they had like explosives everywhere for you. But I definitely kept trying to cheese it, where like I just try to funnel them into the stairway and try to pick off one by one. Like, always try to have like to where they couldn't get behind me. So I'd either hide there, or I would hide to like where you could take the zip line, but I didn't take it yet. And I was just back in that corner, just kind of like pop everyone off. That was crazy. But if you decide to go to the left, it's kind of hidden, but like, because there's that whole dark stairway, right, that leads to the stronghold with all of like the bodies hanging from like the ceiling. That was just cool just to look at. But there's like a tall grass off to the left, and if you go through that, it takes you to this house. It's like a giant barn, and as soon as you open the door, you hear a guy screaming. Walk a little further, you just hear a big thud. And then you go in there, and you see this dude just going to town with an axe in his corner. It's all covered in blood. And then he makes that slow turn and looks at you. And it's kind of like that Urias fight, except it's just this dude has no hair and just has an axe instead of a hammer. And so it's almost like, that's almost like kind of like foreshadowing too, in a way of like, all right, you're going to do the same boss fight like twice. But except with this one, there's like stairs you can go up inside the barn, and if you go to that floor, it will call in those winged creatures from the castle. They'll try to come in and annoy you too. But you can run around, defeat that, and then you can get all this meat that's behind this locked door. So that can help you with your ingredients if you were missing any animals or whatever. And there's like
but then I was like, what kind of meat we got here? Like it.
Yeah, I mean...
It met the requirement, but what...
Right, like, it is called Cannibal's Plunder.
Yeah.
So... Who knows? But there was a teeny bit of lore in there, too. It was kind of teasing. It was like, we're not allowed to have newspapers in this village. We're not allowed to know about the outside world. But this one dude came in, and it was like, he apparently he was like a frequent visitor, and there was like... It was kind of alluding to Umbrella, like... their part in this, and then that's it, and then you get a treasure. That was the main part of it, was just to get that treasure, and then that gives you like 22,000, and you leave. But yeah, that stronghold, for and foremost, that was it was cool, it was intense, but I hate the what it does to you for afterwards. When it comes to resources, that's the only thing. But I guess it pays off with getting all those gems right after the fact. That whole room just full of crystals and whatnot.
That was good. Did you take out everything, like shooting up and making everything? Yeah,
every time I played this game, I try to do an all blue run.
Yeah, same.
I couldn't otherwise, unless I was trying to,
It drove me nuts, and like the ones that I couldn't get, I was like, what am I missing? What am I missing? There was one house in the village that I could never get to flip from red to blue, and I have no idea what it was. I looked in every corner, and I'm sure if I went back now and looked at a guide, it's like, hey, it's this thing right by the doorway you didn't shoot or something, but
yeah.
Man. Yeah. But no, I mean, Wolf's Den, I think you guys nailed it. Like, it just, that was the first time you're like, okay, I'm dying. I gotta get smart with what who I'm shooting and how. But I found with that, the quicker you climbed, the faster you could get through things. When I tried to stay low and kill everything, I tended to lose quicker. But if I just kept climbing and ziplining and doing all the stuff to get up to the top, it was fast. And now I can't remember if I did the cannibal place first or that first, but I remember doing both. And yeah.
Very Doom of that game.
But I was thrown off. Yeah, it was. But I was like, where's Heisenberg? Like, what are we...
Yeah.
Is this the...
Getting a flask already? Didn't even... All right.
Right. Because that was the fourth flask at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go back...
And then didn't even see... Dude.
Yeah, so you get the fourth flask, and you kind of return back to Duke. He does this whole little story thing about, oh, you got all four of them. Well, there's ceremony starts over there. Or maybe a Heisenberg says, I don't remember at this point. Anyway, you head back towards that way, and then you put all the things together, and a bridge comes down, and then the factory is available. I think the Duke said that, like in that first little lore dump, it was like, man, the factory, no one really knows what goes on in that horrific place or something like that. So it kind of had this aura already from the Duke, like, oh man, unimaginable things happen in there. So you go to the factory. And this is where you spend the last kind of like third to quarter of the game, for the most part, until like some of the more linear set pieces. But yeah, it's a big area, but not many plot points kind of happen here. You walk in, you have your first initial kind of confrontation with Heisenberg, and kind of tells you like his plan of taking down Miranda and how you're kind of a test subject, and if you try to kill him, the same thing's just going to happen to him. He's just going to become a puppet for Miranda. Ethan, of course, doesn't agree because he doesn't want to use his daughter to take down Miranda. He just wants to save her. So Heisenberg doesn't like that, pushes him down, and start a chase scene with a weird propeller man chasing you through the factory. And I thought for sure they were going to utilize him more than what they did. I thought it was going to be like another like Demetrius area where like as you were walking around the factory, here comes Propeller Man to hunt you down. But no. Yeah, so like that happens, and then pretty much from there is just this giant 3-level area that you're just kind of doing puzzle after puzzle to unlock the door. That you keep coming back to this like smelting area to craft like a key or whatever. And yeah, I mean, there's some things in there. You have the Propeller Man boss fight, which I thought was a very neat design in terms of how that's a very narrow area, and then because of his attacks, it opens it up to the actual boss arena. I thought that was really smart. And yeah, and then you get kind of like the last little thing there from Chris, where he finally reveals his plan to Ethan about, just like kind of like, just get out of here and I'll explain later kind of thing, but gives him the tool to kind of take down Heisenberg in a way. And yeah, you leave and you have this giant, I felt like I was playing Wolfenstein for the first segment of that Heisenberg fight. And then from there, you take down Heisenberg after he makes fun of Chris for punching boulders. But yeah, I know, but like, I didn't say much about the area, but it is a big area. Like, it is probably like Castle plus Beneviento, maybe just a tiny bit more than that. Like, each level felt like a lord area, and like a smaller lord area in a way. So yeah, like as you're going through it, the Duke kind of rides the elevator with you. That's kind of how you know you got to a major checkpoint when you come back around to him. So it kind of has that like Bloodborne feel to it, where you kind of keep roping around to like an elevator. But yeah, no, I thought that was one of the weaker parts. I didn't really like the enemy designs there, but I'll let you guys talk about it. Joe, what did you think?
I liked that it, again, this sort of started to tie it back to Umbrella to me in a way, because we started to see like someone's doing weird experiments on people, right? Like we're getting back to that kind of thing, and I'm like, okay, it's going somewhere. That aesthetic isn't always my scene, but I loved like the puzzle of having to use the what's the name of that machine? Like the molten.
I said melting, whatever, but I think I'm very
the
wrong.
casting machine.
Yeah,
right. Like having to do that to make the key, and like that was a really clever way to change up. Like go find the thing. It was like no, you got to find the mold to do the thing.
The mold one of your balls.
Yeah, that was another one where like the what?
You said you got the mold one of your balls. I bet you that was your favorite part of the game, right?
That really was. It was really cool. I was like, I'm excited that like they because I'm looking around like where's this thing, and you get the mold for it. I'm like, oh, I'm running back there right now. Yeah, I mean, I'll say that I feel like the further we got into this game, the less interesting the settings were for me. Like, but I did like what we were doing in terms of unveiling more about the story and like those things were great. And I thought the characters, like learning more about the character history, the fact that Heisenberg's like, you don't understand, like this, you had two people both telling you their version of the story, and it's like, obviously the game's going to force you to take out Heisenberg and whatever, but like at that point I still was waiting on Chris to be kind of a villain. So like, do I trust Chris? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. They did interesting things there with narrative that, but having Chris like sit and lay it all out for you was like, all right, I get it. That's okay. And then you get in that machine and then just, let's go do this weird twisted metal.
So
I was mad though because on the elevator ride up, there's a goat in there, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, all right, let's reload the save." And I had to sit through the whole thing, spam and skip cutscene and all that. Get back in, you go up, and then I don't know if I actually got the thing the second time around, but I was like, I'm not reloading to double check. I'm good. But yeah, it was long, like Matt described. Like it's a big area, but that too, it reminded me of like the mines in 7. Like it had some similar, like you're walking through those caves and that similar vibe kind of to it. But
not to keep making the comparison to 4, but it felt like the final island in 4, the whole chapter 5 of that game. Yeah. Mark.
I mean, yeah, I think definitely the biggest part. I like Heisenberg as a character. I like that, he wanted to rebel and he was plotting it the whole time. I like his knockoff Billy Bob Thornton voice. Kept calling Miranda for the most part. He had a very like over exaggerated personality, so like he stuck out as a character from the rest to me. His final form I don't really care for too much. I think again, because you're fighting him, and what's going on, it's really hard to appreciate all the details that are going on with it. And yeah, typically like a factory setting isn't creepy to me, but as the day was going on between each boss fight, the day kept changing. Now we have like a cool sunset going on. You reach that factory, it was hard to not think of Donkey Kong Country, because that part of the game is also like sunset when you're in like the factory like mine area. So I don't know why I was just thinking about that. So I was writing good vibes, but yeah, the creature designs I thought I didn't care too much about it at first, but I appreciated how it kept upgrading and escalating. Like you saw them over time get more and more stuff put on them. And then when the jet ones came in, you're like, oh shit, like they're trying to trap you.
And you're reading the journal entries along the way too that are like telling you like all of the failed, like test subject 1 had this happen. Like that stuff was cool.
Yeah. And like, they try to cover their weakness with their drill arm, but then there's one with 2 drill arms. Like, and then there's another one, but his weak spot's on his back now. It's like, oh, okay. This kind of reminds me of, I think you made the connection, Matt, with the dudes from 4 with the claws.
It
did remind me a bit of that.
4 combined with the regenerators. That was like, that's how you make a new villain in Resident Evil.
Yeah, And then when you had to go back, when you had to backtrack, all the lights were out, and then you have the Panzer. I think Stoldats are what they're all called, but the Panzer Stoldat, which is just the Mr. X one, kind of just fully armored, just walking at you. And it's like, hey, mines are your best friend in this game, so I wasn't too threatened by it, but glad it was just one.
I was waiting for Propeller Man that entire time. I was like, all right, this is my cue to run finally. I'm just running. See ya.
Yeah, like Sturm would have been at any corner, I felt like that entire time. Village of Shadows difficulty. That Panzer dude, there's just one standing there in front of the casting machine. As soon as you enter, I was like, oh god, there's more of these? No thank you. That whole setup was... I started to appreciate the factory as I was going on, because now I've realized at this point in the game, this game is kind of like a love letter to the Universal monsters, in a way. Like, you have your vampires, you have your werewolves, you have your creature from the Black Lagoon. The doll thing, I don't know. And then you have Frankenstein. This is like their take on Frankenstein. I mean, they say it in the concept art too. That was an inspiration. But now knowing that, it's like, this is everything I love. I don't know how I can really hate this. Except, yeah. And then it got very Twisted Metal with that boss fight. And like, I love how stupid that vehicle is. Like, Chainsaw as a guard is all right. I want to actually cut with it, but sure. Well, that makes sense too, I guess. And I was like, it's a very weak boss fight. Like, I don't know why he went from Magneto to this Akira-looking creature. It's cool in concept, but like, he could have just killed you as Magneto. Like, he had you stabbed and trapped in a metal casing in the very beginning. You know, he just dead. But I guess they had to make it work somehow. But I love that he throws you in the air and then you somehow land into the vehicle again, Fast and Furious style, and just launch another rocket at his face. So I love it for its wackiness and the themes, but could have been a better boss fight.
I did not put together the Universal Monsters thing. All right, this might be the best Resident Evil game.
It has a little bit of everything, man. Like, it's...
So wait, the factory's your favorite area now?
No. But
yeah, like, it's still not like the creepiest in terms of like a Resident Evil game, but for the themes that it's reaching here and what it's trying to do, I appreciate it on that level.
Well, because each of those monsters like represent a different horror thing too, and I think all the characters here did too, organically. Besides having that association, but now that you kind of pair them up 1-to-1, it really makes a lot more sense, knowing those tropes.
Yeah, and for Resident Evil, because I'm just kind of burnt out on final forms being like a big grotesque thing. Like, they just start losing their shape of like who they are or what they are. It's just like this blob of whatever, and just fucking shoot the glowy parts. I don't know. Zelda with guns. But no, I don't know. But yeah, I wish Ethan to be a Twisted Metal guest star with that vehicle so much.
Hey man, he's gonna come after the Twisted Metal Destruction All Stars DLC. He's next.
Yes, please.
I don't know what car he's gonna have, but he's gonna be next. Okay, so any final thoughts on the fact? Oh, so I wanted to add one more thing. That hallway with all like the Panzer dudes along the side. When I saw that hallway, I was like, oh motherfucker. I was like, which one? Yeah. I was just walking up like, which one? And it never came. None of them ever came out. But then you turn, shit happens. I think it's when the lights go out, and you turn back around, and like none of them are there. And you're like, oh, you motherfuckers, where are you guys hiding at now? Yeah,
because only one pops. Originally,
I think it was like on your second time through. I don't think it was on the first time. Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah, first time nothing. Second time only one pops. And when the lights are out, it's just.
I was like, where are you motherfuckers all go? That was like one of those little like things that got me each time I had to go through that little hallway. But yeah, all right. So we took a lot of time to get here, much more than I thought. But now we get to the juice of the game, guys. So Heisenberg dies. Miranda shows up and takes Ethan's heart out. Ethan is dead. Game over? No. Cut to Chris Redfield at night, fully armored with the team, almost like a hunk section side mission thing, all armored and geared up with assault rifles, sniper rifles, handguns. Does he have a sniper
Wolfhound
rifle?
Squad?
Yeah, and like so it's this giant shoot 'em up action piece where I was like, this. I think this is the first time that I was like, this kind of doesn't feel like Resident Evil. But you go through it. There's like a set piece where you have to keep putting like airstrikes onto the giant what's that thing called? Megamites?
Megamycete.
Yeah, the Megamycete. Yeah. You have to do that, and you have to defend off the wolves, which I can't wait to do in a harder difficulty because I struggled on standard. And then after that, Chris is like, all right, I'm going in, and you face another Urias type character one more time. You have to kind of do the same airstrike mechanic on him. And then from there, this is probably the most important room in the entire game in terms of lore. It does kind of feel like a giant lore dump because it's all documents. There's one cutscene, which is the one that reveals what Ethan really is with Mia. But yeah, let's just let's go through the lore together. We figure out the origin of Umbrella. Oswald Spencer turns out to be a student of Miranda and likes her research so much, but goes a different path with it, where Miranda is obsessed with something else. I'll get that in a second. Oswald wants to kind of like Nazi-ish take over the world with this perfect human, kind of like. You find out that Miranda is obsessed with bringing back her daughter, Eve, who died, I think, of the Spanish flu, I think was what it was, right? So she becomes hell-bent with using this mold to bring her back. And then you find out that this mold is like the super mold that is the mold from Louisiana kind of like derived off of. Yeah, and then I think the coolest one was the Umbrella logo, but I felt very shoehorned in the more I think about it, I think. But yeah, there's other stuff in here. There's a lot of lore about like Miranda's experiments with the 4 lords you've already taken out at this point, about like the success and how she measured them and things along that nature. You find out a lot about her kind of studies and what she's done kind of all along the way to this point. And then it all ends with you opening that cell and Mia being in there, which kind of takes you pretty much to the end game at that point. But a lot of information came. This is probably the biggest connection in the entire game to the rest of the Resident Evil universe. So yeah, if I miss some, please bring it up right now. But I'm just going to start the questions with this, or I really just have one, but this is the main one. Like, how do we feel about the connections to the rest of the franchise? Because this is the room that does it.
I do. I like it. I like it more so for what it makes me think about. But yeah, it does feel like maybe they couldn't find a better spot in the game to like sprinkle this out more. So you just kind of get hit with it. But it makes sense for it to be in Mother Miranda's lab at least. So if it is going to be in a spot, it might as well be like one of her main headquarters. But yeah, the Umbrella logo I'm still trying to like wrap my head around, because I know it's like based on the 4 lords things, but I'm under the impression that maybe these lords existed before the ones we fought. Like, these have been around for a while, like these 4 families or whatever.
Well, hold on. Before you go further, I just want to add there what Heisenberg said in that first kind of introduction to the factory about, like you're just another test subject for her to kind of take out the lords. Do you like? You start to get the impression that it's not the first time she's tried to do this, and Heisenberg has seen it. So you might be onto something there, Mark. I didn't even think about that until now.
So like, yeah, because like, I don't know how long these 4 lords have lived for. Like, I don't know, whatever. But I mean, because if it's them 4, it's a little lacking. Like, I don't see them as big threats like Wesker level, or I guess technically even Spencer level, or Miranda level at that point, which I guess they're not, obviously. But so yeah, I hope there's more to it than just them 4. Like, I hope these go back further than them. But yeah, I love the connections to 7. especially. But yeah, to go as far back as Spencer is perfect, and it's perfect for Chris to find that because he'd be the only one to understand that. And I thought just playing as Chris was a nod to 7 as well because of the Not a Hero DLC. So
yeah, but that takes it even a step further, like him being the one to read all that stuff. Because
Yeah.
he, like, exclaims as he reads the Spencer stuff, he's like, Spencer? Like, he was, like,
right.
thrown off that it was...
And you wouldn't have known, unless you were Chris in 7, that new Umbrella was, once that hired Chris, like, contracted Chris to go and deal with this. And, like, Chris is still skeptic of them, but at this point he was with the BSAA, and then you find out that, like, he's not a part of that anymore. Like, he keeps joining bands and leaving them and starting new ones. So, like, there's just so much going on right there. It's a lot to take in for that little part. You really have to take a knee there if you really want to fully appreciate it. But I like it.
Yeah, and I like to, now in the wake of it, looking at, like, some of the stuff from 7 and seeing a lot of imagery that ties 7 directly to Mother Miranda. Like, they had a lot of these ideas already that they just never fully realized in 7 that we get to see come together here. So I like that too, like the way that 7 makes that much more sense because of 8, and 8 makes more sense. You know what I mean? Like, they're all kind of, the connection between them all, I appreciate a lot. And it makes the werewolves make sense, and then you can start to go down different, you know what I mean? Like, there are other potential futures they could do, you know what I mean? Other creatures and things you could start to see pop up that would not be out of the realm of question. And they could explain it all just by the same way they explained Miranda's experiments or whatever.
So yeah, you get like the history of Resident Evil Umbrella. So let's bring it forward. Let me dump the next piece of lore on you. Mia's like, oh, I haven't been exactly truthful about Ethan. And then you find out Ethan's alive. He's dead. He's been dead since 7? Early in 7? What? And then, yeah, you kind of come to the conclusion that Ethan is part mold. And that's where the very ass video game thing of him putting his hand back on and his hand being stable back together in 7 and all the stab wounds he's occurred through both of these games and things of that nature. It all kind of makes sense all of a sudden. I really like that little twist. And not really little, it's a big one. I like that twist a lot. Yeah, what's kind of going through your head when you kind of you're seeing Ethan talking to Evelyn, who is the little girl from 7, of course. Like in like a spirit plane kind of thing, and then him being brought back, and I'll stop there before we get to the Duke. But yeah, thoughts of the big twist.
I thought of Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson. They made Swamp Thing.
Oh,
but I was like, that's Ethan is Swamp Thing, and then. Flashing back to Jack in the thing with the shovel and flashing back to the hand, I was like, okay. But then they do a weird thing where the way he comes out of the dream and whatever almost makes it seem like it's just in his head that that's what's happening and that it's not, he's not actually Swamp Thing, and that, I don't know.
But
but he's Swamp Thing.
I think the thing in the head, well, Mark, I'll let you go first, and then I'll address that, because I have a theory about that.
I'll say, well, I mean, I can address it during this, because it pertains, but yeah, so at first finding out that he's mold, I was like, okay, where he's at now talking to this Evelyn is similar to 7, where he's talking to Good Jack and Zoe is there. And because of 7, they kind of explain it in 7, but I don't think it was clear enough, and Village really hit the nail on the head, where especially if you go find when you take a boat to that area in the cave that you have to like kind of like crawl to, and you see all those roots moving, there's a laptop, and they kind of talk about it, where the Megamycete is like this organic network. It's basically the internet, but it's all organic within these roots, and whenever it captures somebody or infects anybody, it keeps a copy of their their subconscious or whatever. Like, it keeps some copy of them, so they can always make another one if they need to. Which is why I think Jack came back in the End of Zoe DLC as that Swamp Thing, pretty much. Even though Jack could always regenerate, I think that has something to do with it. So, like, it was in Ethan's head, but Ethan has that connection to the Megamycete. And that's why he's able to see Evelyn and whatever. And it was cool because they really want to show you, like, hey, his fingers are back, but he's like, he still feels like he's dying or whatever. But then when you get up, like, wake up out of it or whatever, he still has his Ninja Turtle hand, and he's still, and like all sliced. And it kind of makes you think, like, he's the only person I know who's mold who has been able to keep who he is, like, not go crazy, not murdering like innocent people. He still be able to like keep like his personality in check, but yet it also seems like he's starting to lose his ability to like he's on like he has an expiration date of some kind. So yeah, it's a lot of interesting things about him. So it's no wonder they're saying that he, there is something special about him because there's no one else like him to be infected like that.
Yeah,
but oh, sorry. The last thing I wanted to put out with him dying in 7, it makes sense, but it feels like an afterthought. Because, like, it feels like a very video game moment where Jack steps on you. I assume you just get knocked out, because I've seen too many movies and games where you get hit with a foot or, like, a butt of a gun, and then you're getting dragged, like... I guess it was just a very strong kill, but now it seems like an afterthought, but I'm okay with it, because they're somehow to make it still work, and it's not too cheesy for that series, or it's just cheesy enough, rather, and gives a whole new meaning for Jack to say, welcome to the family. But yeah.
Yeah, I did not think that was a afterthought. I when that happened, like I said, I never played 7, but I've seen it through, so I know the story beats. Like I was like, man, did they plan like their 2-game arc kind of already? Like the story wise, I know kind of the background of this game, and with it being Revelations and things like that. But I thought that was pretty clever. I didn't see it as an afterthought, and I honestly, like, as weird as the whole thing was with the hand, I was just ready to dismiss it. And I think that's just the tone of Resident Evil games in the past, where I was just ready to dismiss a hand being reattached. So maybe that's part of it. I just know the history of the story and where it comes from, and Chris punching a boulder. But
boulder punch an asshole.
Yeah. I think it was just for it to kind of be grounded and explained in a way that kind of makes a lot of sense, and it goes back to the very beginning of a game that I didn't expect that to happen at. It kind of took me by surprise, honestly. So yeah, any last thoughts on the whole Evelyn?
I thought, my theory going into this whole game, I thought Mother Miranda was Evelyn's mom. I didn't think Evelyn was going to be a product of whatever, like, but Ava
she kind of is, right?
Right, because so Ava's her real daughter, and Evelyn is just a defunct version of that. I was like, okay, so it was cool to learn about that, and this was weird too. If you have the deluxe version of this game, there is content. It's like 80 pages, but it's like a sentence or two per page. Not all of them are like full top to bottom. There's this whole documentation of everything that's been going on between the games and in the background up into this game. And it's documented by Zoe Baker. And it mentions about the connections, the connections that Mia is a part of, which is a bad organization. They don't have like a headquarters per se, but like they're the ones that are just like buying and selling bioweapons, essentially. And, that's how she became Evelyn's, like, foster mother type situation. And all that stuff we still don't know a lot about with Mia, which is funny that her name is also missing in action. But we find out about the connections only through this part of paid content, that you find who the leader of the connections is. And it's this dude named Brandon Bailey. And if you don't know that name, he's the right-hand man of Spencer. And he's the one that pretty much has a lot to do with the progenitor virus in Resident Evil 5. He's the one behind that virus. So he's the one, and like they say he's dead on like the wikis and stuff, but like he's not, obviously. But the fact that he's the one that started this like anonymous group of villains or whatever is that's another like just lore bomb drop for me.
That's really weird that they hid that in that. I mean, I guess it gives you something.
It's not the first time, but yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that was a part of the deluxe edition. Honestly, did not do that homework.
Most people wouldn't, and I think that's on Capcom. That's.
So yeah, with that, all right, let's go move into the Duke. There's the thing with the Duke. Is there anything we want to say about that? Like, just with the Duke as a character? I mean, I thought he was really cool. There's not enough lore about him unless I missed it.
He's still mysterious. I like him as a character. I like that he cooks and you have dinner with him, but at the same time, you like Ethan's annoyed with him, but then he like kind of grows to like him. It's so weird, but like as a merchant, yeah, definitely one of my favorite merchants.
Yeah, Joe, are you good? Yeah, all right, great. So yeah, let's just speed through this Miranda boss fight. This was not a good boss fight. I'll leave it at that. Anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, I was like, what do you... Oh, you gotta shoot the... Okay, got it. All right, I don't... Okay, I'm dead again. All right, well, let me reload. Oh, crap. I hit the Halo reload button, just used one of my two. All right. Oh, I died again? Okay, I can go to the Duke and spend all the money I have and buy a bunch of ammo? Good, let's do that because I have no ammo in this fight. Now I'm good. And then I took her out, and it was over.
Set design-wise, I thought it was really cool. I like her design for a boss fight, and funny enough, the only spider in the game.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. And that's probably why I got through it.
Yeah. Thought there would have been more. I think their dialogue was a little bit much during the fight. I don't think you needed that. But
especially because that was one of the ones where not only having to do it a couple of times in a row, but also like I think even during the fight, even a single fight itself, some of the lines would repeat, and that's my least favorite thing in a video game, especially. You can forgive it like in an older game when you know that there were technical limitations, but now there's not a lot of excuse. And to have the same thing, same delivery over and over again.
Yeah, and
you'd look better dead, or whatever stupid crap she's saying to him. Like just
die.
Yeah.
And if you don't kill her fast enough, she'll repeat her sequences where like it gets pitch black again. Like it was cool one time, but to go through it again.
Yeah, but then she does it again. Yeah.
But I never dealt with that personally, with any of that. But I did like as it started, Chris just like popped one off in the middle of her talking. It was just like played dirty. It was like go go go. Yeah, but visually I loved it. I think it looked really cool. But yeah, it is just kind of simple. Just time your attacks, move around. No matter what gun you have at the end for that last part, it's just infinite ammo. Even if you have no bullets, whatever gun you're using last, you could just wail away at her. When it's like, it's a forced scene, so like you have to shoot, and I guess they don't want you to fail that. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. Gameplay wise, it's meh, but I liked how it looked.
Yeah. So from there. Miranda's defeated, kinda, but the Mega Mycete, God, I can't speak.
Mega Mycete.
Anyway, that thing keeps kind of growing out of control, and Chris planted bombs to destroy it, but he's trying to help Ethan and Rose get out of there because Rose ends up being okay after they morphed all 4 pieces of the of her body together, and Ethan can't go any further, extremely hurt. Kind of knowing his expiration date's coming after all that stuff that we talked about a little bit earlier. Takes the remote away from Chris, gives him his jacket, and he walks into it. Chris gives him the helicopter with Mia and the baby. They fly away. Boom, destruction. Presumed Ethan is dead. Probably that last sentence right before the credits. The father's story has ended. It assumes he's dead.
Yeah, that's your confirmation right there, dude.
And that's the end of the game. Credits. And then, an after credit scene, because everything has one since Marvel movies. But this one's interesting. We see Rose in the adult form, visiting her father's grave. And then Secret Service looking man calls her over. She goes over. He jokingly, like, kind of like in a, like a, not, it definitely wasn't a joke. It was like in a way to insult her. Called her Evelyn. She got real pissed. And then he after like a little tense situation, they both get in the car. He called he's like, oh, talking to someone on the phone. Oh, it's all good. Then they drive, and then there's a man. And then cut to black. The father's story has ended. Then that's Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil Village.
The fact that there was the dude, and then the car stops at the dude, and then we see the father's story has ended. So I mean, this is the part I think in the podcast where we say what we think is going to happen next, and like, do we play as Rose next? Is she the next main protagonist? Like, why would you say the father's story has ended? Right. Unless you're implying that we're going to continue with her story in some way. Obviously she's got powers of some kind, but like, yeah. What do you, Mark? I feel like you're the most tapped in, or I mean, Matt, you too. You just watched 22 hours of Resident Evil lore in prep for this. So like, where do you guys think is next? Because I don't really know.
Yeah, seeing Rose, it makes you wonder how far along this is taking place, because if you remember with 7, little Evelyn aged rapidly because of that mold. So like, she became instantly an old lady when she was still a child in mind. So I'm wondering if Rose has a similar.
I totally forgot about.
I wonder if Rose has a similar effect here, or like maybe it's like a year or two later. Maybe it's not too far, like in the future.
Right.
And we're also learning about the BSAA now using bioweapons. So now we have zombie soldiers. Zombies are back on the menu, boys. So, and then like, to talking about Chris. So maybe like, Chris is kind of like looking after her in a way. So now we have that bond going on. Now, the dude that they stopped the car for entirely, it obviously looks like Ethan in the distance. At least it did to me, because it was his hoodie that looked like he was wearing. That's under the jacket.
That was a pixel on a 4K TV.
Dude, I was taking screenshots and examining, but there's people who've modded the camera mode, the photo mode in this, and if you zoom in to that character, it is Ethan's character model. He has his bandaged hand and everything, but it could technically be a placeholder for somebody else, but I don't know who else this car would fully stop for. Like, I imagine Rose telling a dude to pump the brakes, and she just can't fathom who's approaching the car, or maybe because I'm not sure she remembers what her dad looks like, because I'm sure in all the photos his face is still blacked out. But like, that has to be like the beginning of the next game, right? That has to be something. And I totally agree with the father's story is done, because the daughter's is about to start. Like,
so let me ask this question then: Who's the centerpiece of Resident Evil going forward? Is it a Winters? Is it a Redfield? Or is it something else?
Centerpiece?
Like like the main character of a game. Like who are these games revolving around at this point? Because I mean, it was like the Redfields and Wesker and things like that, and then kind of pivoted to the Winters. Ethan's story is pretty much over. I'm assuming it's over. But do we continue with Rose at this epilogue, or do we kind of go back to the Redfields, the Valentines of the Resident Evil franchise?
It could be a mix. I
think this is setting itself up to be the next 6, right?
Yeah, like I think this is going to be like the Winters trilogy, is what I'm getting from it, and it's going to be dealing with like fighting BSAA and stuff like that. So I think to fight a bioweapon, you're gonna need a bioweapon type of situation.
Yeah, that's a good,
At least, if that's not what they're implying here, why even show this scene then? In my opinion,
her saying like you don't know the half of what I can do, or something like that, or whatever.
Like there's powers that Chris doesn't even know that she has, that like she can do.
Right.
So the fact she's naming it Chris, I think Chris is still going to be involved to some degree.
I think Chris is going to be involved. I think she will be involved.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of unanswered questions about Mia still that we need to wrap up. I think Ethan could totally still be alive if he is Swamp Thing. He blows up Miranda and then becomes one with the earth and then comes out of the ground in a different forest around the world. Like, you know, he can just live on like Mufasa, just kind of guiding her through the wind.
All right, so I got a couple more questions about the future of the franchise, and we're going to do a quick rapid fire best, and then this will be over. All right, so we kind of answered where we're going with the franchise, but like location wise, all right. So we've kind of seen Europe a couple times. We've seen Africa. We've seen a mansion in the middle of the United States, a full-fledged city. What else can we do? Or do we retread ground?
Different city. Yeah, I think you go back.
Yeah, because this BSAA, if that is I'm just assuming they're going to be the next enemy because the way they teased them. But BSAA at this point is a international organization, and the fact that when they showed these soldiers, they specifically had North America written on their patch. But who's to say other countries also have these soldiers going all about? Hey, you could do a world tour if you even wanted to. But I have a feeling it would probably be North American centric. Whether it's,
I think you could go back to a place like, look, Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest. You roam the countryside of Transylvania to gather the parts of Dracula so that you can put him back together and then kill him once and for all. Because after Simon killed him the first time, he had left the curse among the land. So maybe this is the thing, like, if they really want to bring it back, and then, because not that they're, like, ready for a reboot necessarily, but if you think about, like, 7, 8, and then what a 9 could be, they could set themselves up so that 10 is not necessarily 10, but 10 is, like, a fresh start, right? Like, they could kind of wipe things clean after 9. Then you could bring it back so that you have to regather Wesker and, or whatever, right? Like, reassemble all that stuff just to kill it all together, so maybe it is a world traveling journey. You got to jump to here and jump to there. And, you know, we've gathered the 6 parts of Wesker. We need the 7th.
We still haven't done like a cul-de-sac suburbia yet. So maybe we'll go there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go to a mall.
That would be, hey.
So, with 7, we did get some DLC. If there is DLC, what is it for this game?
Chris going to fight the Europe. What was the thing he got on the call about at the end?
The BS, or not the BSA. Was it the BSA soldiers or something
it's
like
BSA,
that?
yeah. That's an easy one because you already have Chris's, like, not engine, but like Chris's like gameplay stuff is already built in a way, so they could just build some missions around that. I mean, if you do a 2-parter, you do that, and you do a thing where you get to play as Rose and tease the 9th game, right?
That would be cool. I'm thinking, like, something to do with, I've seen a lot of people talk about, like Lady D and, like, how she, you know, became, and, like, wondering, like, when that takes place exactly, because if it lines up with the text that was before you fight, Urias, they're talking about, like, a king giving commands to, like, leave the town and stuff, and, like, maybe this can be some more, like, medieval, like, past stuff. That would be kind of cool. Like using swords and shit. That might be something.
Yeah, because the way you describe that and like Moreau's background, like some of those details you could really flesh out in a DLC that would be interesting.
Yeah, or maybe explain that Mia stuff that was going on. Maybe show the part where she finally got captured and that's where Miranda stepped in as disguising as her. That would be something to look into. Or, you know, just because. Bring back Joe Baker, you know? Punch more shit. Why not? What's he doing?
So I think I almost have the perfect answer here. Joe, I think I already told you this, but there are 2-part DLC, just like 7, or not 2 parts, but like two separate DLCs. Mm-hmm. The first one, just play as Chris during the events of it. You have the assets. You already have Chris. Easy. I'm sure you can kind of revisit a way to do some bosses. Or whatever. Yeah. You just kind of go parallel in the events of Ethan. Like, what happened to the van? Why did the van crash? Like, you kind of know, but you like, how did it happen exactly? You can revisit that. You maybe even like the beginning of it as him seeing how Mia and you evading the house or whatever. And then the second one, Mark, I see you're dying. I'm going to come back to you in just a second.
No,
yeah.
I just remembered.
The second one, I think the Lady Demetrius stuff just blew up. I think there would be a very cool one either revolving her like as the centerpiece of it to get more of her lore, or you play as her, whether it's for a segment or just the whole thing. And then she could be your big like Wolverine like slashing instead of punching. Mark, you were dying just a second ago. What
yeah, because you both reminded me of it. Obviously, for the Chris part, that one, and other people have said it, and I cannot agree more. It should be what was cut content, which is focusing on the Hound Wolf Squad, and that should be a co-op DLC thing where you get to play as them during all that. There is that concept art for Ada, where she was going to be in a game originally, and she kind of looked like a witch doctor, but she got cut because it was compromising other story beats within the series, so it wouldn't have made too much sense, I guess, for her to be there.
Yeah, Leon's not in the game. That's what's compromising.
Yeah, she doesn't have Leon to simp after her. So, but yeah, Hound Wolf Squad, totally.
All right, so we haven't had a villain in a while, like a main piece villain. I think that just carries throughout the series. When does Wesker come back? And is it 9, or is it that the reboot 10?
Yeah, it's 9. And I say that because you've got the Netflix show
right,
coming,
yeah, I forgot about the universe going around this.
And you've got the new movie, and that new movie is going to do a lot to bring in a new... I think already the remakes have done a lot to bring in a lot of new fans. But even the remakes, like, think about where I'm coming from. I've never seen Wesker in a video game, technically speaking. Playing 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8. He's never shown up.
I said when he didn't play.
I have no idea who he is.
That he's not in. So start with 6 and then go back to 1 and 5.
So like, yeah, from that perspective, like you think about the people who have come to the franchise in a way that I have, or even fresher than I have. They don't know who Wesker is. Then you're going to have this series introducing Wesker. I think that's another opportunity for it. So, yeah, I think by the time a 9 would come out, we theoretically have a 4 remake, maybe a 0 remake, maybe you definitely have all these other properties on screen in different ways that I think that they'll bring him back.
I think it'll be the 10th game,
Dracula style. Sorry.
I think he'll be teased in 9, but come back in 10, because you still have to remake Code Veronica, and that could also introduce a former Wesker before getting to know new Wesker. Because who knows how he'll come back, you know?
Yeah.
The last time he was on screen in a video game, didn't he take a rocket to the face in the Revelations game? Isn't that?
The rocket in the face was in 5.
I thought he took another rocket in another game after 5.
He hasn't been in anything since 5.
Oh. All right. Well, maybe I'm messing up something.
Yeah, I mean...
Maybe I'm taking an Umbrella Corpse lore or whatever, you know?
I mean, you have Jake in 6. I mean, that's...
I know you have Jake in 6, yeah. I can't forget that, unfortunately. So, okay, all right. Well, enough lore talk. We've talked a lot about this game already. I just want to end it on some like weird rapid fire questions. I like to do best ofs with spoilers, of course. So let's start. What was your favorite secret in the game, or secret area, secret encounter? Anything you consider a secret? What was your favorite one?
I liked the weird lore when you were finding like Lady Dimitrescu's makeup and stuff, like. The stuff like Mark described earlier, where like you find out that, like the dudes captured turned into wine, like all that weird stuff. That it was like, this is creepy, this is weird, this is how long have they been doing this? That I think was really, really. I guess that extends a little bit more to the like the nature of the village itself, right? Like learning that like this was all very intentional. Maybe not intentional consequences, but the actions that led to that were all very intentional. And this was not just like some weird place. Because going into this, you're like, think about it. Think about the time when Resident Evil Village got leaked and we heard Resident Evil 8 is going to be about witches and vampires. I'm sorry, witches and werewolves. And your first thought and reaction was like, it's not Resident Evil. But like now, knowing that there's a reason behind it, like, yeah, this is Resident Evil.
My favorite was still taking a boat to that cave and finding out more about the mold and like how it works as an organic network kind of thing. I thought, and just seeing it just happen right in front of you, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite one too, Mark. Just because I thought after I got into that secret and then the things moved, I was like, oh, well, this is probably the area after the short factory area. After I kill Heisenberg, I bet you I go through here or something, and then Miranda comes up. I was completely wrong, but it was good foreshadowing. Once again, okay. Was there a particular enemy encounter, section of combat that you all liked? Try not to lean in the boss fight, because that's the next question. Spoilers. Or we just combine them. Favorite encounter, boss fight, or if you have a specific example for both. You all are thinking, I think my favorite boss fight, actually, I don't know. I think mine was, weirdly enough, I think it was Heisenberg. It was just so bizarre. Like it was like everything else felt like a traditional Resident Evil boss in some way. Like it was, a big set piece, extravagant, demon monsters or whatever. But he was just a giant machine, and you were in a tank. Like it just felt so out of place, and it kind of set the mood for the rest of that game as you play through Chris in a weird way when you think about it. But yeah, I think that's my favorite. And as far as the encounters, I think the overwhelming nature of the werewolves at first, like I said, it reminded me a lot about 4, and I just personally, it kind of set the tone for me in this game for what to expect.
I think the daughters were my favorite in the sense that everything else felt, like you said, a traditional Resident Evil. Everything in that game was big thing, get gun, shoot big thing, right? Mostly, I'm being reductive, but those actually had like a little bit of like, okay, you need to take out a window first. So you're like, the 3 different times you have to find a light source and then figure out how to expose that light. Like that was a clever mechanic that I was kind of excited to see them explore more. And then it turned out that like, every boss fight, every other encounter was just like, get bigger weapon, kill this thing. Which isn't bad, but, in terms of, like, interesting things, I think the daughters were, for me, interesting.
Mark?
Yeah, encounters, I like dealing with the ghouls when you get into the cellar and like, and that and, like, the wine blood area. I thought that was really cool. It was, kind of gave me, like, pseudo, like, Army of Darkness vibes a little bit. But, I don't know, yeah, I thought that was just really, and it had like I don't know if Dark Souls is a proper describing word here, but it had like a Dark Souls-ish vibe too, with like, just being in like underground, like chambers and having these creatures come at you with like swords and axes and shit.
And everything sucks and is full of poison and you're going to die around every corner and then you have to go back to the bonfire. The typewriter.
Yeah, and just like seeing all the different torture devices. It was just good design, good set design, good. It just felt creepy. I felt it the most there, I think. Aside from the dollhouse, but not really fighting enemies there. Boss fight. Yeah, I think the daughters might be up there. Even though they're kind of like mini bosses or whatever.
Yeah.
I liked how you had to do it the same thing but 3 different ways. So that also made it a little more unique with each one. But yeah, so I appreciate it for that, definitely. But yeah, I agree with you too, Matt. Like just being in a fucking tank and just with a chainsaw, just fighting this thing. I love that vehicle. I hope to see it again. But
Maybe it's just causing machinery in the factory and stuff like that. But it felt like Wolfenstein, like even like the second Wolfenstein game when you're riding around in the fucking wheelchair, like there was just something absurd, like an absurdity that only kind of like those games can have. I really liked. So
the daughters.
I think I know the answer to this based off our conversations already. But what was your favorite area of the game? Mark, you're closer to the microphone. I'll let you go first.
I mean, yeah, like House Beneviento definitely made an impression, especially when you first play through it. It sticks out the strongest. After playing it 4 times, it doesn't change. Like you're whatever. Like I know how to beat it a little quicker, not have to use as many items. So like you just have to go through the motions all the other times. So like that kind of sucks. So yeah, first playthrough was definitely that though. All the subsequent playthroughs, I think I liked. Wow. I think I actually liked the factory. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the castle seems like it would make sense, but the castle's cool. But I don't know, something about it afterwards. It felt good. I think it just felt good to finally conquer that place with strong enough weapons.
Yeah,
and just being able to handle it completely different than before when you're just like struggling and not enjoying it because you don't have any resources. But going around with the infinite magnum, shit, yeah.
Yeah, I need to play through it again with like the stuff you can unlock. Yeah, I think it's still between Castle and Beneviento.
Yeah,
I think. I really didn't care for the village itself. It was fine, but after a while, it being the central hub, it lost its luster.
Yeah,
where the other places felt a little more exotic in that regard. I even didn't mind the area of Moreau. I just didn't really care for the boss fight.
Right.
But I think still the castle's probably the top for me.
I think mine is the village, but I think it's just the way that a game kind of played with your expectations. Like each time they kind of made you go into it every time coming back, but like it played with your expectations. Like, all right, wait, werewolves, okay. Oh, now there's this thing, and then like that second time, like that giant werewolf thing stalking you around, almost like it reminded me of the 2 werewolves in the very beginning of Bloodborne all over again. I was like, shit. Fuck,
God,
these are kind of hard. God damn it, how am I gonna get past this? Yeah, so like the village, going back into it, the way it played my expectations a little bit. But honestly, I think Beneviento is like my favorite place outside of village. I know that's weird for me to say, but like I said, I said it earlier. It's just one of those. It's a good horror movie. Like you were scared shitless throughout, but afterwards, when you're done with it, he was like, man, that was really good. I could watch that again if I wanted to. This might be a quick one. Favorite weapon?
Steak.
Which one?
The steak. It's a magnum that's stronger than the Wolfsbane, but it's an acronym. It's STAKE. Like.
Oh, that's cute. I decked out that first shotgun you get, and I stuck with that for a long while, even over the other shotgun.
Man.
Yeah, I think that's
The Wolfsbane just looks cool as shit, though.
Yeah, I think initially that first playthrough is the Wolfsbane, but going back through it, just like an infinite ammo assault rifle brings me back to the good old Chicago typewriter days of Resident Evil 4. So I don't think there's a particular one that I like, because there's a couple of them, but yeah, those two, or those that with the infinite ammo is probably up there. 2 more, and then we're out of here. Favorite character, but like the boss, the lords. Miranda is included if you want to include Miranda.
Heisenberg.
I kind of said Heisenberg, yeah. I feel like I would have said Miranda before Mark pointed out the Universal Monsters connection, and now I don't know. I don't know. I think aesthetically Miranda's the creepiest, so I'm gonna go with Miranda.
Yeah, I mean, I just like Heisenberg before he becomes Akira, but
Yeah.
just his personality. Don't run into many villains like that.
Heisenberg kind of the most charismatic, I think, of all the bosses, including Lady Bigfoot. I think she's charismatic for other reasons besides talking. But I think my favorite, and it wasn't in the game. It was kind of when I started going through the Reddits and stuff after beating the game finally. I think Beneviento. I think that's just an interesting character there. It was someone who just hides in the puppets. Like in the terms of the family, they just kind of like secluded themselves away as everyone fought for a mother's attention. And she hid and played with her dolls, and now she has the creepiest fucking area in the entire game. So I think there was something about her background in relation to the rest of the family that I thought was unique. And then we're gonna end it on this. What was your favorite moment in your entire first, Mark, I'm looking at you, first playthrough? If you all are thinking, I think mine, and it goes back to that goddamn house, when I came back up from the well and the lights went red and it was very dark, it reminded me of when you all made me stream PT and I cut the stream when the lights went dim because I didn't want to do it anymore.
Forgot about that.
It brought back that little bit of PTSD. But I think this is part of why I like this moment so much. I conquered it, and I came out on the other side, and I completed Resident Evil Village. But yes, coming back out of that well, when the lighting changed again, I think I curled up in a ball. I think Victoria has a picture of me curled up in a ball playing this game. That moment.
I also have that picture. Yeah, I think the bottom of the well is a strong contender at that point too. But for me, I think it's the Chris right before you do the Heisenberg fight when he tells you kind of what's going on and you're like, oh. But between that and the Spencer connection stuff in Miranda's lab, like those are the parts for me that are like super cool.
He's handing you a wrench and just bonding, telling you a story. He gives you that smirk.
Yeah.
I do like that moment. Of course, the house, like everything about the house, I actually enjoyed. There's not really a thing I hated about it on my first playthrough. I thought that was just super well done. The atmosphere was the strongest at that point for sure. Playing as Chris was also cool on the first run through. It's like, yeah, let's punch some shit. Like it's not like it was just cool to like everything you had just felt great. Just you didn't have to really like try to like survive. You just had to just kill everything in front of you. Like it just became like I jokingly call it Howl of Duty. Because that's all it really was, just Call of Duty, just with werewolves, you know. But
yeah, it was.
Man,
yes.
So it's like those two parts, and then specifically the cinematic with the tank you're driving when you are thrown in a tornado and you just happen to jump back into it. That part.
Welcome to Resident Evil.
It's so ridiculous. But overall, I mean, the house was the strongest. Everything about it.
Yeah.
I will. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
I hope they don't do DLC. I hope they just let's get a remake of Code Veronica out there or Zero, something like that. Restoke the flames for the older things and get people, for my sake, like I want to get reacclimated with all those things too. And I'm trying to go through Code Veronica right now, but it's slower. And you know, when you're spoiled by the remakes, it's hard going back to those sometimes. But yeah, buckle down and get moving on the sequel. I'd rather see a sequel than DLC, unless the DLC starts to answer some of the questions that I have, but I don't think it will. I don't know.
I want A team to work on a sequel and B team to do DLC.
Okay, that's fair. I'll accept your offer.
Because, I mean, they don't have to do too much, right? Just reuse some assets, just kind of twist some things around, maybe. If the DLC goes in that direction. If there is DLC.
Yeah.
I really like my DLC ideas.
No, I think we all have great DLC ideas.
Hound Wolf Co-op.
I hope they get cracking, man.
This game is phenomenal. I like this game a lot. It's going to be interesting how we all fall on it towards the end of the year because I know it's going to be brought back up at that time. I'm curious to see where Resident Evil goes. Period, because one, they got this dumbass reverse game trying to come out, and then this was supposed to be a Revelations game according to all the leaks, right? So they're trying to do something with that franchise. So what did they do with that? Is that the BSAA Crisco New Europe story there? I want to see what the next Revelations game is with some good side lore, and does it answer any of the weird questions about the the connections or whatever? If that kind of goes in that territory, or we're gonna have to wait for a full-fledged 9 to see that. But yeah, I just kind of see what direction the franchise goes besides the rumored remakes of all that good stuff. But yeah, no, I thought this was a very good game overall.
Yeah, I almost didn't buy it. If I didn't get the Series X when I did, I was excited about it, obviously, but I was like, do I want to play this on a last gen console or just wait till I get something new? And then Series X came along and boom, boom, boom. And, I'm happy that it all worked out. Because I thought it looked great, played really great. I think technically speaking too, this was my first big next gen game. Although it's not inherently built for next gen, but in a lot of ways. So yeah, I like that.
I'm pretty sure the DualShock 4 did this for Resident Evil 7, but it was kind of cool. You could see your health status in your controller if you were playing on PlayStation. That was a little neat little touch with the DualSense, as well as all the little different vibrations. But
that's
cool. That was a little PS5 thing. Because I thought it was also unique that we all played on different consoles this time around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally missed out on haptics and all that cool stuff to be able to feel all that. But it's alright.
I didn't have it either. You didn't miss out. I didn't miss it. We both missed out, is what I mean. Yeah. You're not alone.
Gotcha.
The Jim Ryan machine strikes again.
Yeah.
And with that, Jim Ryan probably wants us to wrap up so he can go back to his tea time in Europe, because I assume that's what everyone in Europe does. This went far longer than I thought, so if you're still sticking around, thank you for staying with us and listening to us talk about Resident Evil Village, the entire franchise, going back into the past and into the future. If there is any thoughts, questions you want to ask us, what'd you think of Resident Evil Village? What was your favorite moment, favorite character, gun? I don't know. Tell us something. Did you like Mercenaries mode? I don't know if I do. I don't know if the rest of us do. Write in and ask us, because we didn't talk about that. I kind of forgot to throw that in there. Write us at podcast@thefreecheese.com. As always, ask us anything. I know this is a Spoilercast. I've said it before, though. We'll kind of figure out a way to work it into the regular show or something. Despite this being a Spoilercast, we'll figure something out. But please feel encouraged to write in. On Twitter, Free Cheese is at @somefreecheese. Mark is at aug_mental. I am at MattyIce131. Joe has abandoned Twitter, so you're not going to find him there. That is it, unless, Joe, I'm forgetting something on the wrap-up. I think
that's it. We'll see you Monday with another one.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as Apple Podcasts got their thing back together. At least that seems something's up there. But
14.6, baby.
Yeah.
With that, thank you for listening. See you all next time. Bye.